In 2024 and 2025, massive clearinghouse blackouts froze billions of dollars in provider revenue across the entire country. A clearinghouse acts as the central translator between your practice and the insurance companies. It takes the billing data you generate, scrubs it for coding errors, and reformats it to meet the exact specifications of hundreds of different payers. When it works, it is the engine of your cash flow. A clean claim submitted electronically can return reimbursement in 24 to 48 hours, bypassing weeks of manual payer review and paper checks. This chart shows how that incredible efficiency creates a hidden danger. By routing thousands of independent practices through one vendor, the industry built a single, highly centralized point of failure. Your clearinghouse selection directly controls your practice's financial life support and federal compliance posture. Practice leaders now face a difficult trade-off. You have to weigh the efficiency of modern AI-driven platforms against the inherent risk of relying heavily on a single, consolidated vendor. The current market splits into three distinct structural types: standalone routing tools that strictly process claims, integrated modules bundled inside your electronic health record, and massive enterprise networks that dominate the industry. The pricing models are just as varied. You will find platforms that charge absolutely nothing for basic submission, alongside systems that charge a flat fee per claim, and enterprise solutions that take a strict percentage of your total collections. Evaluating these costs is complicated by impending 2026 HIPAA regulatory updates. Changes at the federal level are forcing practices to rigorously audit and potentially replace the vendors they currently use. Proposed standards push for mandatory multi-factor authentication, continuous asset inventory, and a heavily accelerated 24-hour breach notification window for high-risk incidents. To navigate this environment safely, you have to cut through the marketing hype. You need to map your exact claim volume and your practice's specific risk tolerance directly against actual vendor capabilities. We start with the budget tier. This is built for solo practitioners or small groups of up to 3 providers, processing fewer than 200 claims a month. Plotting options on a quadrant chart comparing claim volume to software budget, Office Alley and Claim.md sit in the budget tier. They require little financial input, either a free platform or 10 to 25 cents per claim, with 0 long-term contracts. The direct outcome is that your software overhead stays practically non-existent. Without expensive monthly minimums, you maximize the profit on every individual claim you file. The trade-off is manual labor. These budget platforms lack advanced AI scrubbing and predictive alerts, meaning your team works harder. If a complex denial occurs or an electronic remittance needs posting, your staff has to intervene by hand. When you opt for a free clearinghouse, you save cash, but your internal billing staff becomes the actual automation engine. As a practice scales to between 4 and 20 providers, the manual rework required by budget tools starts bleeding revenue and stalling cash flow. This pushes practices into the mid-market automation tier, populated by premium platforms like Waystar and Availity Premium. The input here requires a larger investment. Practices typically pay between $200 and $800 a month to integrate these clearinghouses directly into their EHR using API connections. This investment provides predictive, AI-driven denial engines that cross-reference millions of historical records. These systems catch 80 to 90% of coding errors before a claim is ever transmitted. The trade-off for this power is friction. Initial setup is complex, the user interfaces demand training, and utilizing advanced analytics requires buying expensive add-on modules.
You pay a very steep premium upfront. However, if your monthly claim volume is high enough, the revenue saved by preventing denials pays for the software entirely. At the highest end of the scale are hospitals, health systems, and large specialty groups managing upwards of 10,000 claims a month. These organizations require massive enterprise network hubs, heavily dominated by players like Optum and Trizetto. To use them, organizations commit to rigid enterprise contracts. We route massive continuous claim volumes through a single hub that maintains thousands of direct connections with payers across the country. This achieves maximum operational scale. It enables 98% first-pass acceptance rates and seamlessly processes highly complex institutional formats like UB04s and specialty dental claims. The trade-off is that these centralized data behemoths are primary targets for catastrophic cyber attacks.
Centralizing that much data creates immense third-party risk for your organization. Relying on an enterprise network requires a practice to simultaneously build and maintain a complex, costly backup infrastructure just to mitigate the risk of a system-wide breach. Software features will dictate your daily workflow, but strict legal and security realities dictate whether your practice stays open. Recent historic breaches delayed an estimated $2.87 billion in provider cash flow, triggering an immediate and aggressive regulatory crackdown. This checklist outlines the requirements for 2026. Practices must execute strict business associate agreements, demand SOC 2 Type 2 vendor compliance, enforce continuous asset inventory, and implement mandatory multi-factor authentication. The outcome of doing this correctly is a legally defensible environment for electronic protected health information. It gives you protection against audits from the Office for Civil Rights. The trade-off is operational friction. Holding vendors to these security standards drastically limits the pool of legally viable platforms and adds significant time to your internal onboarding process. A platform's slick efficiency features are entirely irrelevant if their poor security posture exposes your practice to federal fines or a devastating loss of cash flow. The core realization for 2026 is this: you must evaluate a clearinghouse based on your claim volume, but you must secure your practice based on risk. This decision tree maps the optimal path. If you operate a solo or small practice, choose Office Alley or Claim.md to protect basic cash flow at zero to low cost. For mid-size groups, select Waystar or Availity Premium, trading higher monthly fees for the heavy lifting of automated denial prevention. And for enterprise or highly specialized groups, choose Optum or TriZetto to handle institutional scale and complexity. Every practice size has a mathematically optimized primary path, but optimizing your daily workflow does not equal protecting your business. There is one final, non-negotiable step that applies to every single practice on this board, regardless of size or budget. You must deploy a dormant backup. This means setting up a free secondary clearinghouse account, like Availity's basic tier, and leaving it securely on standby alongside your primary vendor. To execute this, your administrators have to duplicate all of your initial, tedious payer enrollment and EDI paperwork up front, before an emergency ever happens. The outcome is resilience. If your primary vendor suffers a catastrophic cyber attack, your practice has an immediate failover capability. You flip the switch, your claims flow to the backup, and your revenue continues in hours instead of weeks. In 2026, single vendor dependency is financial negligence. True redundancy is the only guarantee of practice survival.